Da!
Uwielbiam te chi.
To nasza najlepsza technologia wybielająca zęby. Colgate Max White Ultra w odróżnieniu od zwykłych past posiada przełomową formułę, która usuwa głębokie przebarwienia, wybielając zęby już w 3 dni, by zawsze, gdy się uśmiechasz, czuć się doskonale. Colgate Max White Ultra.
Wtorkowy kubełek KFC, 14 kawałków chrupiącego kurczaka, tylko 24,99. Zamów kubełek tylko we wtorek, tylko w KFC.
Le Bull, gong.
No to mamy jajeczko.
Jajko z
A
niespodzianką.
to jest grupas. Spójrzmy na to. Czekaj. Zbliżę. Szybko. Czekaj, już szybko. No.
Jak jeść zupę? Pierwszy sposób. Sposób pierwszy. Normalne jedzenie łyżką. Jak widać, jedzenie normalne łyżką polega na tym, że je się normalnie zupę. Kogo to w ogóle interesuje? Przecież to nie jest kanał, który ma mieć normalne sposoby. Przechodzimy do kolejnego sposobu. Zuba. Sposób drugi. Co zrobić, jak nie ma się akurat łyżki pod ręką? To nie wiem, może sprawdź w szufladzie. A jak tam nie ma, no to trzeba już korzystać z tego, co się akurat ma w kieszeni. Ja tu miałem akurat kasztana. Znalazłem też kilka innych rzeczy. Taśmę klejącą, buta, odkurzacz. No i co? No kasztanem to nie pojadłem, bo sobie zachowałem dla siebie. Taśmą się trochę da, jak się tak nabierze tą rozwiniętą taką częścią już. Ale potem się już zaplątałem w tą taśmę, już tak siedziałem później. Nie wiedziałem, co zrobić. Ale się odplątałem jednak. Także taśma tak średnio się nadaje. Buta chciałem założyć na nogę, to żeby nie był mokry, to nie. No i ten odkurzacz. Odkurzacz jest dobrym sposobem. Stop, tylko trzeba uważać, bo jak za dużo naleci, to potem tak w gardło boli i potem się kaszle i chrząka. Polecam. Ja wam jeszcze nie pokazałem, jak ja nabieram zupę, jak się nie ma łyżki też, no to z garnka wystarczy, tak trochę powoli wylać. No i trochę klusków nakładam, zazwyczaj ręką, ale fajnie się nakłada zupę czasami. Ale nie martwcie się, żeby nie było, że jakąś zupę marnuję, to z tego się jeszcze da drugi talerz przecież nałożyć zawsze. Nic się nie zmarnowało. A jak się wylało, to tam nawet sobie pomalowałem. Taki tutaj jednorożec wyszedł ładny, więc nic nie poszło się na marne. Sposób trzeci. To jest sposób na jedzenie zupy, jak jest niedobra bardzo. Jak ktoś wam ugotował taką niedobrą zupę, to ja bym polecał po prostu wlać to z powrotem do garnka. Natomiast jeżeli sami sobie ugotowaliście taką zupę, ewentualnie można by jeszcze ją wrzucić do zamrażarki. Tylko że to nic nie... nie daje. Znaczy, daje. Jak się ktoś walnie w głowę, proszę o prezentację. Dziękuję panu bardzo. To można potem sobie przyłożyć taki okład i już mniej boli i jest całkiem fajnie, przyjemnie. Taki pomidorowy, zupny okład. Akurat w tym wypadku pomidorowy, bo innej zupy tutaj nie miałem. Okład. No, taką zupę też oczywiście można dać gołębiom, niech sobie zjedzą. No tylko, że to jest niedobra, no to też im nie będzie smakować, no ale zdrowo będą żyć przynajmniej, a nie jakieś tam frytki. Zupka. Zupę palceli zuchy. Sposób chyba czwarty. Jeśli nie lubisz zupy, to zupa ma lubić ciebie. Powiedz jej jakiś komplement, to cię polubi trochę. Masz ładny kolor. Daj jej coś ładnego, na przykład kwiatki. Proszę, to dla ciebie. Zobacz jak się uśmiecha. Aha, widzisz, wyjdź z nią na spacer. Zaprowadź ją w jakieś ciekawe miejsce. Porób z nią coś fajnego. Pojeźdź z nią na deskorolce, może jej się przewietrzy sztopa. Posiedź z nią sobie na ławce, pogadajcie i tak dalej. A jak już ci się zrobi głodno, to ją zjedz.
Co? Ale ja nie mogę! Polubiłem ją! Dała mi nawet kluskową bransoletkę.
Bardzo ładna, ale musisz wiedzieć, że najskrytszym marzeniem zupy jest to, żeby dać ci z zupy.
Co? Naprawdę? Będzie tą pierwszą, która chciała dać mi zupy. Tylko nie mam łyżki. No i co teraz?
Jesteś bez łyżki i jesteś na dworzu. Zjedz ją ze zjeżdżalni. Nie zjedź z nią ze zjeżdżalni, tylko zjedz ją ze zjeżdżalni, czyli wylej ją na samej górze zjeżdżalni, a sam czekaj z otwartą gębą na dole, aż spłynie.
Wiesz co? Ja jednak mam tą łyżkę.
Ale najważniejsze, że zadziałało i że się polubili. I to samo działa nie tylko na pomidorową, ale także na grochową, na barszcz czerwony, na barszcz biały, na krupnik, na kalafiorową, na burakową, na krupnikową, na rosół, na barszcz ukraiński, na brokułową, na zupę krem z dyni, na grzybową, na marchewkową, na koperkową, na wszystkie zupy działa.
Każda się na to nabiera.
Zostawcie zupy z tymi łyżkami w spokoju. Łyżką to sobie możecie danonka zjeść. Zupkę trzeba szanować, dawać jej kwiaty, a ona się uśmiecha. Dobrze? Dziękuję.
Tak, ja urodziłem się goły, a potem byłem mały. Jadę na dupie, bo jestem wesoły. Niestety nie mam wciąż jaj ani pały. Kiedyś byłem biały, potem kolor smoły, a potem
Szybka, bezpłatna dostawa. Oryginalna rozrywka. Wszystko za 49 zł na rok w Prime.
Kup Nivea Black and White i wygrywaj karty na modowe zakupy lub zestawy kosmetyków.
Hello and welcome back to Farming with FUD. Today we grow the Ack-Ack 4-7. without a doubt the most famous weapon to ever walk the earth. First and foremost, it's essential you clear a crack in the ground in which to dump your seeds. And I don't mean the kind with 23 chromosomes. So how might we go about attaining an ACAC seed? It's quite simple. We just need a 7.62x54 rifle cartridge as well as a 7.62x25 Tokarev TT pistol cartridge, like the late Germans before them. Mush them together, and with wizardly magic, we will be gifted with the intermediate rifle cartridge. Now take your 122 grain, you can copy my homework but please don't make it obvious, and face it like one does in Prayer to Mecca, towards Berlin of course. Just like many tree seeds, we'll be covering it in snow to overwinter it as opposed to the conventional soil. Use a generous amount as Russia does in fact have snow. Baby, it's cold outside. Next, we need tools to warm our seed's heart. Use any kind of farm instruments you may find, or anything that may— oh man, I hate when that happens. Or anything you might use to get your farming skill up in RuneScape. Either way, we must cover our seed with them. Next, get some gasoline, yeah, or some diesel fuel, depending on what tractors run on in your home country. Next, after 47 hours, we can remove the farm implements to see if we have a sprout going on below the belt of snow. There are 3 steps in which to grow the ACAC. First, we start out by growing Mikhail Kalashna tractor. Trust me, this is totally normal. Next, Anger Kalashna tractor by taking a German canteen and pouring German water on it, preferably from the Rhine. Next, please the Duolingo owl.
Kommunismus ist scheiße. Stalin ist fett.
After some German insults, we cover Kalashna tractor, or as the Westerners call him, Frank. Size doesn't mean everything, it's certainly how you use it. After another 47 hours, it's time to uncover to see if we have some progress. Your heresy to the founder gods of communism has not gone unnoticed, and they've bestowed upon you a golden gift. Oh, well, we're quite in trouble now. Well, you have to accept your penance, place it on the ground, and if your faith in the Soviet Union is strong enough, upon opening, you will receive— nothing, because we have more steps to complete. After your potentially narrow brush with death, place the Ark of the Communist next to Mikhail Kalashna tractor, placing his spout into the Ark. Remember to replace the lid. Next, feed Mikhail Kalashna tractor some unsalted semichki. Next, replace the snow and hope you are forgiven. After waiting until November 10th, it's time for us to uncover the Ark once more. Send Kalashna tractor on his way. He has a lot of work to do. At long last, the flag of Mozambique. The time has come to nurture this delicate seedling into the 9-pound amalgamation of steel and wood we so desire. Place vertically, as a tree would be, in the light of the shining sun. Next, take a potato, the work of the agricultural proletariat, and marry it with the work of the industrial proletariat. The perfect union, I might say. After you've taken Stalin's dong and so smashed this potato, surround your seedling with it, and generously cover with some snow. I know that fertilizer may be more food than some people in the Union got in a week, but remember, hunger is temporary, AK is forever. As you can see, the growth of the seedling is coming along quite nicely. Next, take some genuine Soviet currency and give it to our growing child. This is essential, as he might have to buy some food. Place at the base of the sapling. Be careful not to offer too much currency, as this may cause the sapling to develop capitalist tendencies and stray away from the Russian pattern we so desire. Remember kids, when faced with starvation or vanity, it's always wiser to choose the former. Next, give your growing AK a non-judgmental physical to ensure the functioning of its parts. As you can see, the magazine's absolutely stuffed. If an AK can complete that November challenge, I think we all can. Be sure to cover the root base. As they say, nothing beats it more than beets. Why not penetrate something healthy? Take your Mosin bayonet and jam it into that can, pouring the homemade borscht down the barrel. Remember what I said about covering that root base well? Yeah, you almost just killed about a couple months worth of work. Continue to add the borscht until the snow around it looks like you got in a 1-year fistfight with some Finnish dudes. Next, you need to nab or nick one of those odd jars of water Babushka's been hiding from you. Dump all of it out so it looks like it was an accident. Still haven't learned to cover the root base, have we? You probably have the intelligence of an empty box. At least an empty box, though, has an open mind. To protect the sapling from outside weeds, place a symbol of its national identity at the base. At long last, we've reached the final step in the growing process. To ensure the seedling gets the moisture it needs, cover it with none other than a Soviet flag. On December 23rd, your Christmas tree, ACAC, should be ready for decoration, harvest. Use your Vegas magician skills and open your present. It's beautiful, although it appears to be Serbian. Perhaps it caught the smell of some delicious kebabs your neighbor was cooking. Or maybe some overzealous accordion music. Inspect the seeds. What? Chinese steel core? It probably spent its money at a buffet without us knowing. Nonetheless, it'll still work, and it's not a disappointment to Papa after all. An elegantly simple 9-pound amalgamation of forged steel and plywood. Plywood? It doesn't break, jam, or overheat. It'll shoot whether it's covered in mud or filled with sand. It's so easy, even a child can use it. And they do. The Soviets put on a coin, Mozambique their flag, and Pet Russian ran off with it.
Zmień wieczór gier w coś wyjątkowego. Ciepłe dzianiny od 119 zł.
Japanese people had long been known for their dedication to work. The term karoshi had been coined in the 1970s in Japan to describe deaths caused by exhaustion from overworking. However, this problem is multifaceted and cannot be attributed to one aspect of the toxic Japanese work culture. Managers pressure employees into doing tasks outside of their responsibilities, and employees are encouraged to arrive earlier than their schedule, while leaving work on time is stigmatized. Whenever there are tight deadlines, sleeping at their workplace is quite a common practice for Japanese people. Despite the negative impacts on society and the collective mental health of the Japanese workforce, this morbid tradition is continually practiced to this day, causing some people to fall so far off the rails that they commit suicide. In 1999, the combination of negligence, corporate greed, and complete disregard for worker safety will have caused the unimaginable suffering of one man. On the morning of September 30th, 1999, nuclear power plant technicians Hisashi Ochi, his colleague Masato Shinohara, and their supervisor, Yutaka Yukokawa, go through their usual route. They arrive at the Takemura nuclear power plant for another day of work. At this point in Japanese history, reliance on nuclear energy was growing. Japan realized its lack of natural resources, so it depended approximately 80% of its energy on imports. Remarkably, almost 90% of crude oil was supplied by the Middle East to them. However, due to the oil crisis of the 1970s, the government of Japan decided to branch out into different forms of energy to sustain a growing economy that's smack dab in the middle of industrialization. Hence, the crucial demand for nuclear energy. The Takemura nuclear power plant was the first nuclear power plant established in Japan. One of its facilities was for repurposing uranium hexafluoride into uranium dioxide. Eventually, the uranium will be further processed into fuel rods that other nuclear plants and nuclear reactors will use. This particular facility was owned by the Japan Nuclear Fuel Conservation Company, JCO. Ochi, Shinohara, and Yokokawa proceeded with their usual morning routine. One of the responsibilities of a nuclear plant technician like Hisashi is to oversee the mixing of uranium. The reprocessing of uranium has 3 crucial steps. Firstly, the dissolution tank. A mixture of uranium powder at the maximum concentration of 5% in nitric acid is mixed here. Secondly, the buffer tank. This tank is shaped cylindrically to help prevent the uranium from reaching accidental criticality, an accidental nuclear fission chain reaction. This tank also helps control the drip of uranium into the third and last step, the precipitation tank, which is surrounded by a water cooling jacket to help remove excess heat from the reaction. Here, the final mixing of the uranium is done carefully. 3 years prior to that fateful day in September, JCO's officials decided to experiment by skipping a few steps to hasten the production of this highly dangerous material due to demand and pressure. In response to this demand, JCO wrote in their official procedure that the uranium powder can be mixed in the stainless steel bucket by hand. Albeit illegal, no incidents have occurred since the approval of the procedure, so it wasn't taken seriously. Additionally, to make matters worse, JCO was behind schedule with the production of fuel rods at the time. Pressured by JCO, the technicians decided to go even further with the already hastened process. This is where things started to go downhill. At approximately 10:35 a.m., Ochi and Shinohara mixed the uranium powder in stainless steel buckets, but instead used 7 times more than the allowed concentration limit. Ochi draped his body inside the precipitation tank and assisted Shinohara, who stood on a platform, to pour the mixture. Suddenly, the gamma radiation alarms sounded. Ochi, Shinohara, and Yokokawa knew they had made a terrible mistake. A flash of blue light was reportedly seen by the three. This is called Cherenkov radiation, where blue light is emitted when the electrons are moving faster than the speed of light on a specific medium. Massive amounts of energy are released and a shockwave, similar to a sonic boom from supersonic planes, is generated. This confirms that an uncontrolled nuclear chain fission reaction happened and was buffering the room with lethal doses of gamma particles. Ochi, who was closest to the blast, received the highest dose, while Shinohara, who stood on the platform, received the second highest dose. Yokokawa, who was 4 meters away from the tank and was behind the computer, received the lowest dose. The regulatory dose limit for people who are occupationally exposed is 20 to 50 millisieverts, MSV, per year. The 3-man crew received a combination of more than 30,000 millisieverts in less than a few minutes. Ochi received a whopping dose of 17,000 millisieverts, while Shinohara and Yokokawa received 10,000 and 3,000 millisieverts, respectively. The 3 men fled immediately. However, none of them were able to get very far. Ochi and Shinohara immediately felt searing pain all over their bodies, as they quickly became nauseous and short of breath. Yokokawa also felt the effects, albeit slightly less extreme. Ochi enters the locker room where he vomits and passes out on the floor. The plant was immediately cleared out to control the damage and prevent the other workers from getting exposed. Ochi, Shinohara, and Yokokawa were taken to the National Institute of Radiological Sciences in Chiba. However, because of the severity of Ochi's case, he was quickly sent to the University of Tokyo Hospital, where there are more qualified staff and modern equipment to handle the treatment and process. On the evening of September 30th, Ochi arrived at the University of Tokyo Hospital and was received by the medical staff. Strangely, Ochi seemed fine and went through the usual protocols like any other patient in the hospital. He was brought up on a stretcher and taken to a private room in the ICU. One of the nurses attended to him there. She noted that aside from a swollen arm and seemingly only sunburnt skin, Ochi seemed fine and was in high spirits. Another nurse commented that he actually might be able to go home later. Unbeknownst to them, this was the beginning of one of the most horrific deaths in history. After learning that Ochi was in a nuclear plant accident, the medical staff conducted a micrograph of his bone marrow to really hone in on the problem. What they learned from the results filled them with dread, and the doctors knew then that Ochi's case was no simple workplace-related incident. The human body has countless cells that die, but are shed and replaced throughout time. This is facilitated by the chromosomes in our body, which contains the blueprint for the repairing process. Without the chromosomes' functionality, a person simply cannot survive. Ochi's chromosomes were so badly damaged from the radiation blast that samples of it looked like a mesh of soup. Some of it broke into pieces like glass, scattering into various directions, and could hardly be identified. Some were fused together abnormally. The blueprint for cell replication and repair simply wasn't there anymore, and the chromosomes were rendered useless. The doctors could not believe what they were seeing. If the damage is apparently that severe, why is it that according to the nurses, Ochi seemed fine and in high spirits even? The doctors agreed that Ochi was in the walking ghost phase, which is a period of health that may last for hours or days, depending on the body's reaction to radiation poisoning. Before the radiation blast, Ochi's cells were still functional, so whatever health he apparently showed upon his arrival at the hospital will be short-lived once the radiation poisoning becomes in effect. Simply put, he was a ticking time bomb, and Ochi's nightmarish suffering was about to begin. Beside losing the functionality of his chromosomes, Ochi's white blood cell count stooped dangerously low, making him susceptible to infections. To remedy this, the chief physician handling Ochi's case, Dr. Kazuhiko Miyakawa, ordered him to be moved into a sterile room where he can be constantly shielded from outside pathogens and bacteria. With the possibility of infections out of the way, Dr. Miyakawa recognized that to give Ochi a fighting chance at survival, they needed to supply his body with an influx of healthy chromosomes so that it can be coaxed to replicate cells and repair itself again. Dr. Miyakawa decided to try an experimental treatment for cancer called hematopoietic stem cell transplant. This treatment will require the harvesting of healthy bone marrow cells from a donor, which will then be transplanted into Ochi. The healthy cells will make their way into Ochi's bone marrow and ideally should allow it to produce healthy cells of its own again. The only caveat to this highly advanced treatment at the time is that the donor must be a good match for Ochi's immune system. Fortunately, Ochi's sister was deemed a good match by the doctors, and so the procedure was undertaken. Although helpful, Ochi's family was anxious that Ochi was the first recipient of this treatment in the world. Knowing full well the damage done by the radiation to Ochi's body, Dr. Miyakawa made sure that the family was able to see Ochi on a daily basis. He realized that any false hopes would make the already difficult situation more problematic. Dr. Miyakawa was not idealistic about the situation and wanted Ochi's family to accept the worst-case scenario as early as now. Meanwhile, Ochi did not seem to understand the gravity of his situation. One nurse noted that Ochi stated, "I thought I'd be able to leave the hospital in a month or so, but it's going to take longer, isn't it?" Later, he asked about his exposure to radiation. When you're exposed to radiation like this, is there a risk of contracting leukemia or something? Unbeknownst to him, Ochi didn't have the luxury of time to contract leukemia. Physical symptoms of the radiation poisoning began to creep up on Ochi's body, losing its elasticity. Ochi's skin began to fall off. The medical staff noticed that removing medical tape would peel off big chunks of skin from Ochi's body. This prompted the doctors to stop the use of medical tape or any tape of adhesive on Ochi. Later, Ochi's lungs started to fill up with fluid, so he begins to struggle with breathing. At this point, Ochi didn't have the energy to speak or move too much. However, Ochi's spirit seemed unbreakable. He still managed to smile and say "I love you" to his wife, which the nurses found to be heartbreaking. Soon, as the fluids continually build up in his lungs, Ochi lost the ability to breathe. The doctors decided to put him in assisted breathing. The family visited Ochi every day, and they put paper cranes beside him. "10 days after the stem cell transplantation, the doctors conducted a test on Ochi to see the effects of the treatment. Ochi's family waited nervously as they waited for the results. Miraculously, the cells harvested from Ochi's sister were present in Ochi's body, indicating that the treatment, although first in the world, had worked. Over the next few days, Ochi's white blood cell count also increased to normal levels. Ochi's family and the doctors were ecstatic. Hisashi Ochi might be able to go home after all. One week after the positive news, Ochi's condition began to deteriorate again. This is where things really started to take a turn for the worse. An endoscopy was done on Ochi, and a horrifying truth was revealed. The membrane of Ochi's intestines had died and was peeling from its walls. A human body's intestine is lined with the intestinal mucosa. The surface is highly important for absorption, digestion, and even protection against microbial infections. Without this, a person will neither be able to hold on to the nutrients from the food they eat, nor be able to absorb water. Eventually, This loss of fluids and nutrients may lead to dehydration or starvation, and ultimately, death. However, death was far preferable to what Ochi had to suffer through in the next few days. To figure out what went wrong, Dr. Miyakawa performed another test on Ochi. He learned that the healthy chromosomes transplanted to Ochi had now become corrupted due to the surrounding radiation in his body. Despite the medical team's efforts, Ochi's body was simply too damaged from the radiation blast that it affected even the healthy transplanted cells. This means that Ochi is back to square one. Dr. Miyakawa was frustrated. He knew he had to break the devastating news to Ochi's hopeful family. Meanwhile, Ochi started to experience gastrointestinal problems. He was losing control of his bowels and produced 3 liters of diarrhea per day. Also, the peeling intestinal membrane caused him to bleed internally. Ochi was quickly losing a lot of blood, which prompted Dr. Miyakawa to perform blood transfusions on him. Due to the severity of the hemorrhage, Ochi was given as many as 10 blood transfusions over the course of a day. Under these circumstances, Ochi was constantly administered fentanyl to help ease his pain. Later, Ochi's skin and flesh continued to blister and peel off. As a result, his body could no longer hold fluids and he was in danger of becoming completely dehydrated. Ochi reportedly lost 10 liters of fluids a day, which had to be replaced through an IV stream. To remedy this, the doctors completely wrapped Ochi in bandages in the hopes of retaining the fluids. However, it became futile, as Ochi's skin and flesh bled and seeped continuously. The loss of fluids was so severe that the doctors had to measure them so that they would know how much to pump back into Ochi. According to one nurse, it took almost half a day to replace the bandages in a heated room as Ochi's body lost its ability to regulate heat. In a last-ditch effort to preserve fluids from Ochi's body, Dr. Miyakawa decided to give Ochi large skin grafts in the hopes that it would buy the medical team time to figure out more ways to help the poor man. However, even the skin grafts did not adhere to Ochi's dehydrated body. This was the beginning of the end for Ochi. At that point, Ochi was becoming hopeless. A nurse recorded him saying, "No more. I'm going home. Please stop." In his state of deliriousness, Ochi was reportedly calling out to his mother. Because of his skin losing its elasticity, Ochi's eyelids could not close anymore, and he was reportedly seen to be crying blood. Despite everything, Ochi's family was still hopeful that one day they'd see him well again. Soon the symptoms became too much for Ochi, and he was put into a medically induced coma. An ominous air loomed over Dr. Miyakawa's team. Everyone knew that Ochi was at the end of his rope. However, as medical professionals, they did not speak it loudly, as it would deter them from their objective, to help Hisashi Ochi. Two months after the accident, Hisashi Ochi had undergone unimaginable pain. He had been transplanted stem cells from his sister and had been administered with blood transfusion and skin grafts, but all of it ultimately failed. Ochi's time was running out. Due to the cumulative stress on Ochi's body, his heart was pumping twice as hard at the rate of 120 beats per minute. Despite Ochi's immobile state, his heart rate was that of a person who was running a marathon. One day, Ochi's heart stopped. Due to the lack of a do not resuscitate document, Ochi was revived. At this point, Ochi's brain, although producing waves, was nearly gone, as he didn't respond to any stimulus anymore. Additionally, his kidneys and liver stopped functioning completely. Ochi's life was hanging by a thread, and he was entirely dependent on machines that were keeping him alive. Finally, after discussing among themselves, the family decided to sign the do not resuscitate on Dr. Miyakawa's behest. Finally, on December 21st, 83 days after a grueling battle for life, Hisashi Ochi's heart stopped and he was finally released from his suffering. A family man and a dedicated worker, Hisashi Ochi died from multiple organ failure. Besides Hisashi Ochi, the other technician, Shinohara, who received the second highest dose of radiation among the three, also died. Their supervisor, Yutaka Yakokawa, who received the lowest dose of radiation, survived the ordeal. News of the incident flooded the Japanese media. 49 people were exposed to the radiation blast. However, only Ochi and Shinohara were the fatalities. After a year-long investigation, the police arrested 6 officials from JCO due to their involvement in the criticality incident. Yutaka Yokokawa, the supervisor among the 3, was one of them. They were charged with professional negligence. JCO's reputation was on the line as the media reported their deliberate sidestepping of safety measures and procedures to achieve the growing demand for nuclear fuel rods. Eventually, they were stripped of their business license, and together with its